Art One-on-One with Mr. Burgher.
Welcome to another episode of Art One-on-One with me, Nichole Jordan, and Mr. Burgher.
All right. Well, it's kind of a different transition this time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so Nichole is going to be we came up with the term.
Well, you came up with the term moderator.
Well, we said moderator, and we said that, but I thought we agreed on
Pod boss.
Pod
That's
boss.
what I came up with was pod boss.
Pod boss. So Nichole's official title is the pod boss.
That's right.
And so we're going to continue with the same flow of content, the same kind of review of stuff, maybe look at different things from the news or other topics, maybe getting off topic with other things from your expertise in the, how would you classify what it is that you do on the daily?
I am a nutrition and wellness coach, so I talk to people about their health, their lifestyle, and what they can do to better their health. So
you come from obviously from a slightly different perspective than where I'm at, but you also have content on social media. People can check that out. I'll put a link down in the description below if they're wanting some coaching.
That's right. And
if they're wanting some artistic things, they can. Well, I guess that's why we're doing this. So there's that.
Okay, so let's jump right in and talk about the content from this past week on Art 101.
Yeah.
The first video that jumps out to me, or that I remember, is the video on Hank, and it was a blooper of him basically jumping out and pretending he was an ogre.
Right. We were doing a video on Pompeii, and Hank decided that he was going to go into full ogre mode, and he was going to be Shrek. For whatever reason, because we have there was a place that we would call Shrek's house, and so there was the whole thing around that. But anyway, I don't know if your family has those traditions that you have, but from the time that Brooklyn was little, we started going to the Shrek movies. And Brooklyn is my oldest daughter, and she's 24 now. And from the time that she was little through Shrek 1, 2, 3, and 4, we would go to watch all of those videos in the theater, or the movies in the theater, rather, not the videos, but you know what I mean. Yeah. And we'll watch them on DVD. I think we watched them on, maybe not VHS. I think that they were out post VHS time. But anyway, to me, I love that clip, and I think I sent it to 100 people or something like that, because it was just so funny, I thought. But
well, he was definitely his dad's child in that moment. I think
something like that.
Trying to take over the camera.
He was definitely trying to take over what was going on. But anyway, I thought it was just too cute not to share as its own thing. So even people that didn't watch the Pompeii video can see Hank and Etta kind of hamming it up a little. Hank more than Etta, but
I thought Etta was pretty good on that.
Well, there were, when we do things like this, sometimes there's multiple takes and you start things over and it takes a couple tries, and when you've got animals and you've got kids and you've got adults, sometimes you got to start over. And even myself, like I'll be thinking something and I'll have a tongue twister, and you got to just take two.
Roll with it.
You just roll with it, exactly. So anyway, there was that one, and then I had posted again on Picasso.
Yeah, the Ladies of Avignon is what you posted about, and I guess my question to you was, the title of that was Immoral Picasso.
Yeah.
So why did you choose that video?
Well, it's one of those things where I like to put out different artists, different content, different things, and a lot of times people see something like the Ladies of Avignon. They see that it's kind of focusing on prostitution. It's something that's immoral. It's something that was viewed as immoral, depending upon your perspective, I suppose. But it's one of those things where people see that painting, and it's a famous painting, and it's seen over and over and over again in various aspects of pop culture. It was in the background of a episode of The Simpsons. It was in Titanic. It has been in lots of aspects of pop culture, and people see it. And even though it was not actually on Titanic when it sank, obviously.
Okay.
But, well, maybe not obviously, but it wasn't. At any rate, the point is that people see it, and it's recognized, and it's kind of mainstream, and it's kind of lost its controversy. And so, looking at it from the lens of when it was made, it was very controversial for several reasons, because of the style that it was painted, the abstraction in which it was painted, the introduction of Cubism, which Picasso stole from George Braque. He stole it from another artist. It wasn't even his idea. But then the subject matter of prostitution, of nudity, and in my mind, several times it has come up in various forms, usually more in the college level than lower levels of education. But the ideas of naked versus nude, and there's a big difference.
Which I did not realize there was a difference.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, the way that I was always taught was naked was very passive. Naked was you don't have the naked has the aspect of unprotected and
like a negative connotation.
Yeah, there's a defenselessness to it, whereas being nude is empowering. I'm owning it. This is me and my body, and I'm showing it to you, but I still have the power, despite the fact that I'm exposing everything I got. I'm still the one in control and power. Where when you're naked, it's a little bit more. You have less power, I think.
Right. I think that what is interesting to me that when I read about it is that nude seemed to be acceptable, but naked was not, and it was mainly around religious beliefs, wasn't it?
I mean, it's interesting where you've got these things that are like this particular painting by Picasso, which is it has nothing to do with religion at all, really. Right. But, people want to put their perspective into it. They want to have their opinions represented in those sorts of things. But you also look at paintings like on the Sistine Chapel, in one of, it's the official worship space of the Pope, and it's filled with nudity. It's filled with nakedness, depending upon how you want to view it or look at it. I guess I would say nudity. Others might say nakedness. But there were high-ups in the church that wanted it to be covered up. They wanted things, let's add a drapery here, or let's add a thing here. And there were artists that were hired to come in after Michelangelo Buonarroti and cover up pieces and parts of that, and a lot of those things have been sponged and washed off, and now the original fresco is left so we can actually see the work as it was intended to be seen by Michelangelo. But even when that was being created in the mid-1400s, it was seen as questionable. Like, should we allow this or should we not? So even at that, nakedness in an abstracted form is presumably still naked, I guess.
It's art. They just see it as art. There's no controversy around it. It's just art.
I agree.
And it's appreciated for that. It's just less controversial right now.
Hopefully, people understood the background behind the painting, and obviously, in a 30-second clip, you really can't get into all of the nuts and the bolts and the things around it. But I don't know. Maybe there should be a spin-off of that video. I don't know. Maybe I should get into more detail with another video with that work all on its own. But I don't know. Maybe.
I think it'd be a fun topic just because the differences. Well, first of all, how controversial it was. And second of all, just because I don't think people understand. It was a big deal. It was a really big deal.
Yeah.
Like reading about it, it was a big deal back then.
And it would be an interesting topic. Maybe that's one to put on the list for a future. Future, yeah. Well, maybe put a poll out there and see if people want more nudity on Art 101 with Mr. Burgher. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. So enough about nudity. Let's move on to the next video that you covered last week about Bridget Riley.
Yeah, Saturday was Bridget Riley, and I always really enjoyed her work, her op art. It was very influential, and just decided that I was going to jump in and just do some research and figure some things out about how she works. And very much respect her as an artist. She's still, to my knowledge, still working. And there were still some pieces about her work that I thought were very applicable, especially to the students that I have in my classroom today. I think that one of the big things that I really lean on, and I've said this probably a million times over the years, is you've got to learn how to see. You have to pay attention to what you're looking at. Don't put in the lines, don't put in the things that you think are there. Put in what's actually there. Use your eyes. What's there? What does it look like? What's the angle? What's the shape? What's the texture? A lot of times people will just start adding things. If they're drawing a face, they'll automatically put two eyes right in the dead middle, like there's somebody looking straight at you, even if they're not. If they're looking at a 3/4 profile, get that head to turn, get the nose to turn. Where's the nose pointed? Where's the, all of those little things. And it's amazing, in my opinion, what happens when students really pay attention and look at what they're doing.
I think, she talks a lot about perspective, which I think is what you're talking about. And I think a cool story that I learned about her was that from very little, she didn't go to school. She stayed at home. And so she said she just had so many opportunities to just sit and watch and see and take in her environment and really think about things from her perspective and what she saw. And I think that you see that in her art and how she talks about her art.
Yeah, and again, she's been around a long time. She's lived through a lot of things. She's British, and she's been through a lot of change in Britain, and she's seen a lot of things. And I think that one of the things that really resonates with me personally is that she's at points of her life, obviously not in her 90s today, but at points in her life, she was able to balance or find a balance between being a teacher and being an artist. And I'm going to make my work, but I'm going to teach kids. And for me, the difficult thing, for me, to be honest, is I spend a lot of time thinking about videos and reading about what I want to do and doing research and working on building video content as opposed to the physical act of creating actual pieces of artwork, not video art, but physical pieces of like a drawing or a painting or a sculpture type art, not video art that's more educational content, but
Well, the videos you're producing are art. It's just a different form of art.
It is, but I think I've got a plan. I'm going to roll it out here in the coming weeks. I'm going to talk more about it. So it's going to be a surprise to everybody at the same time. Including
me, the pod boss.
Including the pod boss.
Okay.
It's going to be rolled out new, and I've got it's a very lofty goal. And we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to roll it out for everybody at the same time, but not today.
More to come on that.
More to come. You're going to have to wait. You're going to have to stay tuned if you want to know about what's going on. There will be some video documentation with a historic slant. I hope it's going to be interesting. I hope that it's going to get people that are interested in what I'm doing. So
I'd love to tell you it sounds interesting, but you're not really giving us any clue to
I'm not giving. No, this is it's one of those things. It's like when I started the podcast. I'm starting a podcast, and I really don't know what it is. And we're just going to have to go on the journey to figure it out. You're going to have to just go on this journey with me to be able to get to the point where it's figured out.
So speaking of producing art, in your video you mentioned about the studio assistants that Bridget Riley had. So Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, and I think that's really another one of those really interesting things that most people don't think about when they think about what artists do. I think most people have this idea, like when I make my art, they think, okay, Mr. Burgher goes in his little Mr. Burgher cave, and he makes his art like a little hobbit, and comes out, and there's his artwork. But when he does it, he's all by himself when he does it, which is true. But in the case of Bridget Riley's or professional artists that are on that
scale,
they're on that level. They're on a little bit different level. A Bridget Riley, an Andy Warhol, a Michelangelo Buonarroti, a Leonardo da Vinci, name the big names. They're going to have studio assistants. And those studio assistants typically will do basically anything that needs to happen in the studio, from getting supplies, making sure everything's set up, making sure that the day's ready to go, making sure that things are prepped, things are prepared. So when the artist gets there, when Bridget Riley comes in, the work is being done. Now, in the case of Bridget Riley, it's a little bit different. And what I mean by that is, when an artist like Andy Warhol, for example, would work in his factory, he would have the people coming in, and it would be set up, and then he would be doing some of the labor, and the assistant would be helping producing that product.
Okay.
But with Bridget Riley, she would make like a design and say, I want that design to be big. And so they would take her sketch, her drawing, her plan, and they would enlarge it to the scale that she wanted it, and then they would essentially reproduce it. But it was hers. They were doing the labor, but it was hers. And a lot of times there are people in art, like art students, they have a real problem with that.
Right.
They think, how can it be hers if she's not making it? Well, it's her idea. Art can be conceptual. Art can be an idea. Art can be a performance, even though it's not acting. Art can be a happening, even though it's kind of planned ahead. Art can be a lot of different things, and produced in a lot of different ways, or created in a lot of different ways. And if I, for example, make a design for a house, someone like a Frank Lloyd Wright, Frank Lloyd Wright isn't out there with a hammer and nails building his house. He's got construction workers and contractors and people that are doing the plumbing and the heating and the electrical and the framing and the finished carpentry. He's not in there laying carpet. I mean, he's just making the plan. And a lot of times, even with whether you're talking about something like that or sculptors like Klaus Oldenburg, who I've got a video on him coming up in the coming weeks, months. Klaus Oldenburg would come up with small models for things, and he would have a team make these things into huge steel monuments, but he couldn't do that by himself. Christo and Jean-Claude they did all kinds of earthwork type projects like Surrounded Islands. I did a video on that. You can check out Surrounded Islands as well. I mean, obviously they weren't out there in the middle of the harbor next to Miami putting these big pink things around these islands by themselves. They had teams of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people cleaning up garbage and putting out the things and then bringing it back in when it was all done. So,
well, and that reminds me of like Brunelleschi was last week for you. You talked about him and the dome, and I mean how many people he had to have on his team or his crew, and passed on after he passed away. That continued his work. I mean,
right. Well, and even the whole cathedral. I mean, that whole cathedral was a huge project, and it took, an architect started it, and after he passed on, then his assistant took over the project and became the leader, and then they got it to a certain point, and then he died, and then so the assistant was constantly stepping up into the role of lead architect until you got to Brunelleschi and his dome, and he saw that whole thing to completion because he had the plans and he had the whole thing in his mind, but he also had a crew around him that he trusted with that process, that procedure. And it wasn't just him by himself. He had that group of people that was just willing to get in there and do it, I guess.
It kind of surprises me because I think that a lot of artists, or in my opinion, there's a lot of ego. There's a lot of artists that have a lot of ego behind them. And so to have that trust to let other people continue their work, is that a normal thing? Is that a normal thing to have a team, or is it more?
I think it depends. I think it depends on the level that you're at. And I think in that hierarchy, you have to know your place. You would have to. Because you're essentially you're prepping to get yourself to that next level. So for example, using a video example, the innovator of video art is an artist by the name of Nam June Paik. And Nam June Paik was like the brainchild of videos can become art. We can make art that is centered on creating videos. And he made lots of sculptural things that were really the conduit to videos. And one of his assistants was another artist by the name of Bill Viola. And Bill Viola still works and creates video art to this day. And he's one of my favorites, but also probably the leading video artist in the world. As a matter of fact, they've got some pieces of his. I mean, you can go to any major gallery around the world, and if they've got video installations, they'll have a Bill Viola. And even here in the Des Moines area, Des Moines, Iowa, they have a video installation of Bill Viola called Ascension, which is a very popular piece of his. But the point is, Bill Viola, being the student, learned from Nam June Paik. He took his ideas, he took his philosophies, he took his approach, he put his own spin on it, he did his own things, but he took those tools and used that to learn and grow and develop his own way of making and own creating.
Well, I think that's true in any profession, you have mentors and you have people that you'll learn from. I call them expanders. But, you know, you have to start somewhere. And so, but I think it's a big thing to me to be able to hand off my artwork and let someone else create that, even on like a bigger scale. That would be a tough thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I think that you have to have the right person in that role, the person that wants to learn and grow while not overstepping their position to say, I'm going to try to turn this into my thing. You got to know that, no, this is the artist, this is the vision, I'm doing what my boss wants me to do, and learning and growing so that when you get your opportunity to step in front, now you've got your opportunity, now you're going to start to have a path, and then the people that are following you are going to learn and go and grow, and you hope that you can pass that along, even though that doesn't always happen. The people that are the studio assistants don't always get that shot to become the big name.
I think in the case of Bridget Riley, she also taught, right? So I think it would have been a lot easier taking that role underneath her because she wants to teach. She's there to teach, and like from listening to her videos and her interviews, she was very passionate about that as well.
To me, being that lead person, being that person that she is in that role, is a lot like being the cooperating teacher when you have somebody coming in to my classroom, for example, as a college student. They're trying to learn how to be an art teacher. Well, I teach them, okay, here's what I do, here's my process, but at the end of the day, I also know you're not going to teach the way I teach. So at the end of the day, here are the things that work for me, and here's what I'm seeing, but you have to kind of figure it out on your own, and which is similar, but kind of the opposite of what you got to do to be a studio assistant. Anyway, I think that that's just a really interesting thing. A lot of students, a lot of people, a lot of individuals that are interested in art don't always think about that. You know, you think, oh, this thing was made 100% by this artist because their name is on it. It's their signature, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there weren't other hands involved in the preparation of that.
Okay, so how do they get recognized for what they do then? Like if
they get money,
so their name doesn't get.
No, because the artist, it is the artist. The artist is the one.
Okay, so I think we've talked enough about Bridget Riley. We can kind of wrap things up unless there's anything else you want to cover there.
I think we've pretty much discussed the week, and I'm just looking forward to new content, new things coming out, and hopefully we can continue to have more conversations as we go forward with the podcast and kind of get into a flow a little bit.
Yeah, this was a start. So so thanks everyone for joining us. We look forward to providing you more content and meaningful conversations. Like us on other platforms, Mr. Burgher, Art 101. Yep. He's all over the place.
TikTok, YouTube, wherever. Find me anywhere.
All right. Great. So, everybody, have a good night.
Thanks for watching, listening. Both.